Hello, biology students. Here's a follow-up video to the one that I just did on the first several pages of our unit packet. So I covered in that video all the way from the beginning through sections 1.1 and 1.2, finishing up at experimental design. So here I'm going to pick up today. So this will correspond to what we do in class on Thursday and Friday, the 17th and 18th of September. So virtual students, this is what we went over. So let's talk about this. So feel free to reference your responses and follow along. All right, so experimental design. For the following experiments, fill in the requested information. So 3 redwood trees are kept at different humidity levels inside a greenhouse for 12 weeks. Must be a pretty tall greenhouse because redwoods are huge. So 1 tree is left outside in normal conditions, and the heights of the trees are measured once a week. So the guiding question for this experiment is going to be, how does humidity level impact growth in redwood trees? So we could say growth or height, but really height is just a measure of tree growth. So that is what we're trying to find out through this experiment. So now in order to answer this question, we'll need to go through the scientific method, create a hypothesis, and figure out what our variables would be in this case. So that's what we're going to do right here. So it asks you complete the following table using the information about the redwood experiment. All right, so our hypothesis or a claim is usually going to be worded in a if-then format, okay? So if we increase the humidity, then the redwoods will grow at a faster rate. So that is the claim that I chose for this one. So you could have chosen the opposite. If we increase the humidity, then the redwoods will grow slower or at a slower rate. So you can take different stances in a hypothesis, but you need to take a stance. So you need to make that prediction essentially. So the then part of a hypothesis is always going to be that kind of predictive statement where you take a stance. So now we have to think about our variables. So our independent variable is always going to be the one that we are changing or manipulating in the experiment, okay? So in this case, the manipulated variable is the level of humidity. The level of humidity is what we have changed here. So 1 tree is left outside in normal conditions, normal atmospheric humidity for wherever this location is. And then the other ones, the other 2, are brought into the greenhouse. So the humidity would likely be higher inside of there. So that is what we have manipulated in our lab. Now our dependent or responding variable is redwood growth / height. So that is what is going to change as a result of it. I'll put height in there. That is what we're actually measuring. So we're measuring the height. And that height is essentially dependent upon the level of humidity. So that's why they call it the dependent or responding variable. The tree will respond and grow to a different height based on that humidity. But we have to identify what variables we've controlled here. So we've controlled multiple variables here, and we might not even realize it. So every good experiment should only have one true variable, one thing that we've changed. So in this case, our controlled variables are tree species. So we didn't test a redwood outside and a sequoia inside. We kept our tree species the same, and that's key because different tree species are going to inherently or naturally have differences. So we don't want multiple variables. We've kept our temperatures likely the same. So we didn't, essentially put one redwood in or in a really cold place in the north, and then put one in a really warm place, though our greenhouse might naturally change the temperature as well as the humidity. But precipitation, we've likely held constant. So the precipitation or rainfall outside should also be the same amount of rainfall in terms of inches that the trees are getting inside. So we're going to want to keep that certainly the same as well. We could think of many different variables. I've only just named a few that are the same. We've also kept, for example, the measure we're using, the growth measure, is the same. We're using height for both of them. All right, so we're not measuring one tree in terms of its width or how far it would be if we'd wrap our arms around it, which would be pretty thick for a redwood. And then we're not doing the other one as height. All of them are measured in height, and they should be measured in the same units as well, units of measure. Is there a control group for this experiment? So the control group is what group we are keeping the same as the natural environmental conditions. So yes, there is one, and it's the redwood tree kept outside in its normal habitat. All right, so that is what we would do for number 1 of our experimental design section. All right, so number 2, you decide to clean the bathroom. You notice that the shower is covered in a strange green slime. You try to get rid of this slime by adding lemon juice. You spray half of the shower with lemon juice and spray the other half of it with water. After 3 days of spraying equal amounts 3 times a day, there is no change in the appearance of the green slime on either side of the shower. All right, so our initial observation, we need to think about, like, what is our problem? What are we observing? So I observed the shower is covered in a green slime. We don't know what the slime is. We don't really know how it got there. But the guiding question is really, how do we get rid of it? So to be more specific, we're going to ask, does lemon juice eliminate the green slime? Because that is the treatment that we've decided to use. Okay? So now we need to go ahead and complete our hypothesis and our variables in our table. All right, so our hypothesis perhaps might be, and you might have something different here, but it should look similar to this. If lemon juice is sprayed on the green slime, then the slime will remove it. Or perhaps you've predicted just the opposite. If lemon juice is sprayed on the green slime, then the slime will, or I should say, then the lemon juice will remove it. But you also could have predicted, if your lemon juice is sprayed on the slime, then maybe the slime will grow more. That could have been another possible prediction. So our independent or manipulated variable, what we've changed is the lemon juice / the type of liquid applied, because we did apply water to one half of our shower, and then the other half we applied lemon juice. Our dependent or responding variable is how much slime there is after we've applied that liquid. So that is what we are going to be looking for. That is what we're going to be measuring, the amount of slime. So that's the responding variable. That's what we're measuring. All right, our controlled variables, there are things that are controlled here. The location is controlled. We didn't take one shower in one house covered in green slime, spray it with lime juice, and one in a different house and spray it with water. No, it's the same shower, and it's also the same testing area. So we didn't take 1/3 and spray it with our lime juice and 2/3 with water. No, we did 1/2 each. All right. And there's probably many other controls that I'm not even thinking of right now. There are always many, many controls. You should always have many more controlled variables than independent variables, ideally only one. Is there a control group? And if so, what is it? This should say if so, not is so. All right, so the control group is the half of the shower that was not treated with lemon juice. and it was treated with water. So the question is this a controlled experiment? So because we have only used one variable, only one independent variable, I would call this a controlled experiment, absolutely. All right, so now in our last section of this experimental design section, it will ask you to go ahead and describe which step or which part of the scientific method is described by each of the activities listed below. All right, so number 1, Jonathan's data showed that household cockroaches moved away from raw cucumber slices. So if his data showed this, then he must have drawn a conclusion about this. He must have analyzed his results and found out this is what's happening. Okay, so I would call that C, drawing a conclusion. Number 2, Pascal saw bats catching insects after dark. He then asked, how do bats find the insects after dark? All right, so he is posing a question here. So if you're posing a question, that would be considered kind of recognizing a problem or asking a guiding question. So P/Q. All right, Arjulia soaked 6 different kinds of seeds in water for 24 hours. Then she planted the seeds in soil at a depth of 1 centimeter. She used the same amount of water, light, and heat for each kind of seed. So I see what we have here is she is running a controlled experiment. So we can think about the different variables we have here. So let's take a look and see what kind of independent variable we have and what controlled variables. So we see here that seed type, based on using 6 different kinds of seeds, seed type is our independent variable, and all the different controls would be same amount of water, same amount of light, same amount of heat for each kind of seed. So I would consider this definitely testing a hypothesis with an experiment, E. All right, so number 4, Rashawn read about growing plants in water. He wanted to know how plants could grow without soil. All right, so that is like a question or a wondering. So we could think about this as a guiding question. However, it's not really kind of a specific question. I mean, it's certainly a question, but I would say because he read about it from other resources, he read about growing plants in water, he did some background research. So he gathered some background information. B. This one could also be kind of P/Q, but I would consider it more B because he's doing some background research. Number 5, Ashley said, if acid rain affects plants in a particular lake, it can then affect small animals, such as crayfish, that live in the same water. So, let's think about this. We can see the format of this is going to be similar to an if-then statement. If acid rain affects plants in a particular lake, we could put a then here, then it can affect small animals. So what scientific thing do we know that has an if-then statement? It was listed up here in the previous examples. A hypothesis, an if-then statement of a question to be tested. All right, so I would say that is certainly going to be H, form a hypothesis or make a prediction, make a claim. Okay, and lastly, number 6, Yang experiments with the diets of guinea pigs. He measures and records the weight of the guinea pigs every 3 days, or I should say every day for 3 weeks. All right, so he's experimenting with their diets, but really the focus of this isn't so much on the setup of his experiments. The focus of this statement is kind of on the measuring and recording of their weight. So the data that he's collecting on our guinea pigs every day for 21 days or 3 weeks. So I would consider this one to be D, collecting data or evidence. All right, everybody. that will conclude today's summing up of the experimental design practice section of the unit packet. So virtual learners, please watch this at home and have a great day. All right, thanks. Bye.